What would you say is the biggest challenge nowadays facing renewables in Europe?
I think first we have to make citizens, investors, also policymakers aware that renewables will be 70% plus of all energy investments of the next 10 years in Europe. We will have to do this in order to fulfill the legal requirements of the binding targets in the existing renewable legislation. And in that respect, I think the biggest problem is probably the kind of opposition which is now popping up left and right, not from citizens, but from the existing oligopolies, which basically are afraid that their cash cows like old coal power plants or nuclear power plants will earn much less money when renewables will go especially quickly to the electricity market.
The European Commission said recently there were billions of euros to be invested in the coming years to meet the EU's energy target. Apparently we are on track. So what's holding up those investments?
We need good national frameworks, and in that we have to transpose the relatively good ideas which are in the national action plans now into laws, but also in national training programs. We have to reduce some of the red tape on authorizations. And when it comes to financing, I think that we need an answer to the Basel III induced liquidity or more problems of major banks to hand out senior debt and also equity. So I'm advocating in the next EU budget a scheme which we could call a renewable energy fund, which would help especially smaller investors with some risk-sharing instruments to go into the investments which we need. This is also important not to rely too much just on some oligopolies, on the few oligopolies, to have the renewable investments. So in that respect, it is also a measure to foster more competition in the EU energy market.
Are you concerned about the slowdown that we've seen with the economic crisis, the slowdown that we've seen in investments, the rollback of some national support scheme for renewables?
I think some of these support schemes had to be adapted. The good news is that PV is much cheaper now than it was 1.5 years ago. That is also linked to the fact that China is aggressively entering this market, and we should not pay higher guaranteed prices as we need to trigger the investment. So we should not only see these, let's say, changes in the laws negative. It is just a consequence also of cheaper prices of some of the technologies.
So the market is actually providing mostly for those investments as is initially planned?
I think the market will continue to function if we have good national conditions, which is of course the national support schemes, and then we have to sit down with financial actors to see how to ease a bit part of the equity or the senior debt problem which we have today in all investments in Europe. So that's not specific to renewables.
Thank you.
Thank you.